Live tonight for the virtual Chicagoland Speedway. LSR TV is happy to say good evening, sim racing fans, and welcome to round number 15 of the 2019 Full Throttle RealSimRacing Cup Series, powered by Sim Racers for Mental Health, where we go racing for the Windy City 125 tonight on your home for sim racing at the iRacing Esports Network. And on this Canada Day, it is an all-Canadian team upstairs, as always. Myself, Evan Pasoko, alongside Justin Prince. Our producer is Brett Wheeler. He's in the truck bringing us to you this evening. And Justin, we continue off of what was no doubt a very exciting Monday night of action last week. First road course race we saw on this 2019 campaign out in Sonoma, and a first-time points race winner in Connor Horn, setting us up for tonight's 125-lap contest.
Yeah, we've seen lots of different strategies come into play at Sonoma, at the carousel, and a lot of attrition, in fact, especially in the midpoint of the race. There was a lot of different comers and goers, but it's going to be a different beast today with Chicagoland, because we're back to the mile and a half, which we have seen be so crazy, especially in the first 15-20 laps of each run. And on top of that, we have some fairly new competitors that can challenge for the race victory tonight.
A handful of those drivers are completely green and will be making their first ever starts in RealSimRacing competition tonight. Another handful of those drivers, some familiar names from seasons past, and we're happy that they're joining us starting this Monday night. It is going to be just at a point that we made right off at the top as we were talking before we went live. Probably very difficult, if not improbable, for those drivers to be able to get up and into a playoff position, because it is, as always, the top 16 on points alone. There is no win and lock yourself in. And when you're talking about a series that has seen over 50 drivers compete this season, let's talk about that cut line coming into tonight. Nothing's changed up front. It's still Andrew Ferdinand by a lot. Kyle Kamer, Eric Stanford, Thomas George, Brian Chambers, they're your top five. But down at that cut line, Andrew T. Jones has 259 points. He is one single point ahead of Jeremy Rittenberg, who sits 17th for what would be the final spot into the playoffs. Now, yes, we still have 9 weeks to go, so that battle is going to be exciting to watch, but it is going to be nearly impossible for some of the new drivers to get 300 some odd points over the next few weeks and catch those drivers as well.
Yeah, the only way they can even have a chance to do it is if they won out, but that's highly improbable. But that doesn't take away from the tightness to try and make sure you're in, because you got Fredericks, as you mentioned, Jones, Rittenberg amongst the drivers going to be battling on that cut line. Plus you got guys like Kalist, Caldwell, anybody who could sneak in, but the question is, who's going to be able to sneak themselves up to the front to take the lead here to start here at Chicagoland?
Let's go down trackside to find out as the qualifying session is drawn to a close. Here's a look top to bottom at tonight's LSR TV starting grid from the Chicagoland Speedway. And pole position in this one goes to Kyle Kamer, runner-up just a week ago in Sonoma, his 30.232 best of them all. He'll bring us to the green flying tonight alongside the number 45 of Brian Chambers, who starts in second spot. Back on row 2, you'll see Skylar Shackelford roll from third alongside Eric Stanford in the number 4 position. And last week's race winner, the 24 Chevrolet of Connor Horn, rounds out your top 5.
Daniel Eberhardt starts as an outside in 6th position. That's where we get to the first of the newcomers tonight. First start for Tommy Gossett at the number 80 Chevrolet. He'll start 7th, followed by Blake O'Connell and row number 4. Row 5, Shane Parrish will start alongside one of the more stronger drivers this season, Jason Jacoby.
Anthony Fredericks there on back. He's inside of row 6 in the number 11 spot. He'll be joined by another new name, the number 99 of Brock Drury, making his 2019 debut tonight. Still waiting for that car to actually get onto the grid. He actually qualifies in front of Andrew Ferdinand, who is muddled mid-pack back in the number 13th position. Scott McClendon just alongside him in 14th spot, and Nicholas Caldwell is P15.
16th, Matt Miller with Sean Kalist in 17th spot, just a couple tenths off the pole. He'll start alongside Jeremy Bazemore, rounding out the top 20, Scott Brotherton and Todd Nobosad.
And then the final couple of cars that did take times to qualify, the number 42 of Tom Morano and the number 23 of Jeremy E. Miller. Everybody from this point on back, no times in queue, seated provisionally. And there's one of your new names, Ashton Crowder, going to make his debut this season in the NASCAR America Toyota Camry. He's joined by Dylan Jones back there as well, and a handful of other drivers, including Rhett McBride 24th and Jonathan Cadell in 25th.
26, Thomas J. George alongside him, and right around behind him, actually, Bryce Whitson Jr., his first race back since having a stem cell transplant. Good to see him back in the 00 machine. Round at the grid, Jeremy Rittenberg, Dylan C. Jones, John Fowler, Cale Weekly. Fowler and Weekly both missed the start for the start of the Windy City 125.
They will have to start for the pit lane, and they're going to lose about a lap before they can actually get on the track. Let's talk about this Chicagoland Speedway 1.5-mile racetrack with banking at 18 degrees, but that is not what makes it so exciting. Of course, with this package, we expect the cars to be close together, but I think outright, I love this racetrack as an intermediate circuit. It should be a lot of fun. They're able to make the inside, the outside lines work, and if these cars are any sort of dose of racy tonight, it should be an exciting Monday night of sim racing action. And we are so happy that you've tuned in to join us here on LSR TV and the iRacing Esports Network. The pace car is going to dive down to the safety of pit road, and it will be the braided Kyle Kamer's field to control as we get set to go racing for the Windy City 125. Let's go racing from Chicagoland. Green flag in the air.
And a little bit of a checkup, pardon me, there when Brian Chambliss, a huge scramble on the top side all of a sudden. And that's absolutely caused to go 3-4 wide in the back.
The back of the pack is real shuffled up now. It's all clear for your race leaders. A little bit of 2 and 3 wide throughout the top 15 as I think most drivers were able to get that sorted out, but they survived their first exchange. A battle for the race lead sees the number 12 machine of Skylar Shackelford moving to the outside line and side by side for the race lead first time through.
Yes, indeed. Some good racing so far, but keep an eye on a lot of these drivers. The more you get racy, the more it burns out the tires, especially early in this run. And that means there's a lot of importance to try and get to the point like Shackelford is doing on the high side.
He's got a lot of steam, and a lot of that was the push from the Brady machine of Tommy Gossett, who gave him the run through. The 12's going to go to the race lead. Just a little bit further behind them, the 90 of Daniel E. Eberhardt. He'll go 3 wide up through the middle, splitting the 45, and some more company. Jason Jacoby also working in that middle lane as the field now chases down Shackelford, with Gossett making his own charge for the race lead on the outside down the backstretch.
And take a look at Jacoby. He's going to try and force it to the hole instead, back to the bottom side to make it 3 wide. This package comes down to a lot of confidence and aggression, and so far we're seeing guys like Shackelford, Gossett, and now Jacoby being the most aggressive. Jacoby might try and get something to work on the high side through 1 and 2.
He started in 10th position. It's only lap 4, and he was scored in the number 4 spot the last time through. But he is all over the back of Gossett, drafting these 2 cars where the whole way through 1 and 2, and now down the backstretch to turn 3. We saw that between a couple of pairs of cars in practice earlier tonight. We'll see how long that lasts out there on the racetrack, but for lap 4, it pays dividends, and Gossett leads on the outside line. Now the 3 car steps out of line, trying to make a move for his own.
Yeah, and he's actually going to force Shackelford to have to check up, because this is around the point where some of the drivers might see some tire slippage, but a huge move by Jacoby. They go side by side.
He'll swing to the inside and now challenge the cars that were once working together. Now foes in 3 and 4, making a move and sliding high. Here comes the crossover as Gossett goes back to the inside. He'll use the apron. The 3 of Jacoby stays on the banking, and that battle between your top 2 has reeled everybody else back in. Shackelford, Horn, Eberhardt, all right there on the doorstep within 0.3 of a second, as the inside is the better place to be by half a car length.
For the time being, but you're starting to see it now that the outside is starting to come into play through corner exit of 1 and 2, and why some of the drivers are trying to battle. Take a look at one of those cars, Daniel Eberhardt. He nearly lost the back end trying to get towards the apron side that time, but I think he's just going to be able to fall behind Jacoby, use that high side. Keep an eye, though, in that 27 machine of Crowder. He is now crushing his way to the field, plus 15 in 7 laps.
You expect great things from great drivers, and Ashton Crowder fits the bill at the best spot on the grid of the cars that did not qualify, and he has already passed 13 cars as a 3-wide battle for the race lead sees the Donnie of Eberhardt go way to the inside. Gossett's in the middle. Jacoby tries to work the outside. He'll get relegated back to the number 3 spot as Eberhardt struggles to stay in the gas on the inside, and Gossett once again with the advantage as the 3 car tucks back underneath him.
And this is some absolutely great racing up towards the front. Again, it takes a lot of aggression to make sure not just that you're able to battle for the position, but be able to hold on to it and keep the clean air, because once the tire wear starts to settle in, that has been the main difference for some teams and drivers. It could be the difference is up to 2-3% of tire wear per right front and right rear to make sure you can continue up your pace.
And there's more 3-wide further back where that Ashton Crowder machine is. He tried to stick it 3-wide with the 4 of Anthony Fredericks in the middle of the racetrack. This is kind of a big bottleneck of cars. Tail end of the top 5 that sees the inside the place to be. Connor Horn, the 18 Mission Parish, a handful of drivers pass Fredericks, so not a good exchange that time as Fredericks loses a handful of spots that he had just gained.
Yeah, some of these cars are starting to get really tight, it looks like, especially trying to go from the bottom and corner exit. So that's where I think the top line's going to come into play. You can hold on to the throttle a little bit longer if you use the middle seam, but that also leads to some tires, big contact 27-18.
They're going to hang on to it. The 4 car dies with the inside as Shane Parrish lost a ton of speed getting into the back of Crowder. He'll lose just as many more, and all of a sudden, after starting in the number 9 spot and gaining a ton early, he's throwing them all away. He's just behind the battle. It sees Kamer, Fredericks. They were door-to-door that time at a turn number 2 as the top 5 slowly start to single file and stretch out for the first time, now 10 laps in.
Yeah, indeed, right now. This is where, again, if you get caught side by side, it can be the difference in some cases. Up to a full second of side drafting each and every lap you're stuck in a battle. So that makes it much more important for a lot of the drivers to try and get on by, and why guys like Crowder are going to take advantage of any mistakes. Nearly made it 3 wide towards the backstretch.
Thought about it, decides to stay in line here. That's that 24 a Horn as well, as Crowder is camped out on the inside of the racetrack. His gain has now gone to plus 17 from where he started this race. So the 27 Toyota continues to charge, now up to P5, continuing to make an impressive run. What does he have left on those tires, though? He's the second off your race leader, Tommy Gossett. Gossett and Eberhardt have pulled about a half a second advantage atop Jacoby in third as they try to stretch this out a little bit.
Yeah, and again, they have to try and take advantage before some of the drivers like Crowder get on through the pack, because you never know, first off, if there's going to be yellow. But second, let's say this race goes green. If you're able to, say, get towards that 2-car tandem draft, you'll be able to waltz your way forward. Right now, the difference between the drivers up at the front and Gossett and Eberhardt compared to, say, the middle pack right now is a 10 to 2/10 each and every lap right now that they're losing from a lot of these side-by-side battles and are being stuck behind drivers that are seeing much more tighter race cars.
And we'll see how these cars continue to evolve over the course of a run, how they continue to slip away. Something else to know, when we were on the grid, you saw the sun setting behind the grandstands at this virtual Chicagoland Speedway. Well, you'll notice it looks like the whole racetrack's in shade. It's just the sun starting to dip down behind the horizon. This race is going to go into the night before it's all said and done, and we'll see some action under the lights a little bit later on.
Yeah, indeed, but so a lot of these drivers, they might be thinking, please have the temps drop by the time the lights come out. 82 degrees the track temp, and it's killing drivers like Jacoby. You might have just noticed Jacoby lose 3 spots after having to get off the gas to avoid scraping the outside wall off of turn 2. These cars that were pushing in the first 10 laps of this race, they're starting to go backwards. Jacoby, Shackelford now seeing some major struggles on this track.
That checkup from Jacoby cost him the spots to Shackelford, Horn, and Crowder, who run 3, 4, 5 at the moment. He's tucked up behind them in 6th, but still in contact as this 4-car pack now races to the front straightaway, and Crowder's on the move again. He'll follow Horn to the banking. He'll come back up high into turn number 1 with the inside spot on Shackelford, and they will duel side by side for 4th and 5th with that 3 of Jacoby watching on. I thought maybe Crowder would have had it there. The 12 stays true. Does it end in turn 3? Yes, it does. The 27's got the spot, and Shackelford will give not only that position away, but let the 3-car by on as well. So Shackelford falls to the number 6 spot, and another race high for Crowder, who is now scored in 4th, and he wants 3rd to the outside. Quick move on the outside of Horn.
And I think Crowder's just trying to play this smart, try and go up high, diamond off the corner, and try and get the better run if he can try and do it. I don't think he's going to push the issue, so to speak, but essentially try and make the drivers around him overdrive themselves, outplay themselves with the pace he knows he's been running so far and how he's been much better by about a 10th in some cases off the corner.
He is all over the bumper that time. Horn went down to the grass, and a caution flag is out for the first time tonight, and it is a lot of cars on the front straightaway. Thomas George is one of them. Brock Drury is also around, and it is a big mess that needs to be cleaned up at lap number 19. The replay will show it started with contact between Drury and Kamer, I believe, as they fought on the racetrack for 13th and 14th.
Yeah, Kamer just slid up the racetrack, got tight, just gave a slight door tap. That just got Drury out of shape, and he couldn't correct the car right into Thomas J. George. Brings out the caution flag. And unfortunate for those two drivers, Matt Miller on top of that got some significant damage, who needed points tonight. And just compounds how this season has gone this year in the number 78. Just bad luck for all 3 drivers involved.
They had nowhere to go. I mean, that 9-car got slammed into the outside wall. He was in the immediate vicinity of where Brock Drury's entry went. And then, of course, you saw the 78 of Matt Miller try to squeeze by up against the fence. Just wasn't enough real estate to be able to get away unscathed. And a handful of cars just past the start-finish line get involved in this one. Looks like they all attempted to limp to the pit lane with the exception of Thomas J. George. George has taken the toe to the pit lane, and he has actually now brought that machine behind the wall. So not a good night for the driver who came into this evening 4th in the championship standings. A healthy margin above the top 16 cutoff, but still not the night that he would have wanted, as it looks like Thomas George is the first of the garage in this Windy City 125. That means, though, pit stops, and of course, with Justin, how much we were talking about the tires falling off, it'll be a race for 4 tires and fuel.
Yeah, indeed, the fuel window with the cars this week are expected to be around that 52 to 54-ish range. So these drivers, I think, are going to, again, have to take those 4 tires. And if you even dare take 2, say, within the first 10 laps, if we get some quick runs, that might cause too much tire slippage to take the advantage. But Daniel Eberhard takes advantage of his pit box to take the race lead.
It was impressive. He came down to the pit lane, obviously behind the 80. Gossett was the lead car onto pit road, and it didn't look like the 80 had a bad pit stop by any means. I think in that case, Daniel Eberhard was just better, and he should assume the race lead. One driver did stay out under that exchange. Todd Novosad in the number 34 machine, but as he rides around on the flat of the racetrack, I would suspect that means he is back down into pit lane in short order and should come down this time, and that would relinquish the race lead back in favor of the Bernardi of Eberhard. It would be Eberhard, Gossett, Crowder, Jacoby, and Shackelford, your top 5. So not a ton of changes as we do see Novosad come in.
Yes, that's expected for Novosad, but something unexpected. I think Horn had something pop up with his car where he had to make an adjustment maybe with his setup. Not in terms of the car setup, in terms of how his iRacing race setup was going, because he had to jump out of the car, went back into the race car, and now has relinquished all his positions on the racetrack. He will, however, get to stay on the lead lap of this race.
Just looking at some of the other drivers that are down and onto the pit lane, Drury's in there for damage repairs. Also looks like Matt Miller has made a second trip down to pit road. as he wants to get some additional damage fixed on the number 78 car. So just like that, your night gets a lot longer, and it is a tough way for all of that to go down. But first yellow flag of the night, and that incident goes unclaimed by the drivers involved. So that one will be reviewed post-race to see if it'll go any certain direction. And I think the replays gave you a decent idea of how all that went down. The number 88 machine, something that we briefly talked about on that first run, of course, having to start for the pit lane from missing the grid in this one was Andrew Friedage. And it's big, Justin, the championship leader, 6-time race winner and 5-time pole sitter, qualifying A13th. That's shockingly enough, but also B, just not making the grid. He gets lucky here, and he gets the lucky dog, so he'll get back to the lead lap, and expect to see that Hellman's Ford Mustang make a charge very similar to what we saw Crowder do and come up through the field when we get back green.
Yeah, I'm curious how he does. He wasn't the quickest in qualifying, which I think might have factored into it. He would have been dead center in the middle of that pack around where guys like George were battling. So this kind of mixes things a bit up. He's going to have to start at the back of the field. Yes, he just came down this time by to top off and get his tires. But it's going to be an interesting race now to see how drivers like Eberhard, Gossett now respond. Plus, you got Crowder now up at the front after cutting his way through the field in the first 7-8 laps of the start of this race. There's a lot of drivers to watch for, to say the very least, tonight.
Connor Horn's struggles continued. Again, he was top 5, had an issue with the pit lane. He just brought that car back down pit road again. So that machine is going to drop all the way to the very end and outside of the top 20 at minimum after coming out of the pit lane at the moment of the yellow, being a top 5 car. So that's somebody else who watch the intervals at the top of your screen and see how they're faring as they try to get back up and into the conversation. Pace's car is way out in front of Daniel Eberhard, who will control us back to the green flag here at turn number 4. He gets to go when he would like. From now to the end of the restart box, he'll bring him slowly at 65 all the way to the exit. Green flag is back in the air, 23 laps behind us.
And a decent start this time, but Crowder's trying to push the issue. Nearly made it 3 wide on the bottom of the racetrack. Smart for him to check up, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see Crowder shoot up to the high side down the back.
The 27 looks low. He crosses to the outside. There's the move, and he'll make it a drag race, getting up to speed into 3. Who gets more support? It's Gossett on the back of the 27. Shackelford, though, bobbled in 3, so there's no support for the Donnie of Eberhard, who tries to block. He can't do it, and here comes Crowder. After starting back in 23rd, he'll look for the race lead at lap 25 as they're 3 wide behind, and what a move by Jacoby! Up through the middle. He'll look for the race lead now at a 2.
Great side draft on Eberhard that time. They're 4 wide right behind him, but Jacoby's got the run and the drafting help. He just needs to try and stick it together and hope this race continues the way it's going, but there's a crash.
So far, no, there it is. Caution flag is out. It's up against the outside wall. Nicholas Caldwell is in it. And once more, the 8 machine of Kyle Kamer, also one of the cars involved. We'll take a look at the LSR TV replay. It's lap number 25 into turn 4, and it looks like it was the 18 machine of Shane Parrish, who was working really hard on the inside, just trying to push Jeremy E. Miller. Got a little bit loose or a little bit tight, pushed up the hill. He tags Kyle Kamer, who was in the middle of 3 wide, and there is very little margin for error there. He snaps up the hill, takes out that 2 of Caldwell, and also gets some pretty severe damage on board one of the drivers who started up near the front in this race, and that was Brian Chambliss, who got hit into the outside wall.
Yeah, Chambliss is just the unlucky bystander. That one, that's going to be potential engine damage. But essentially, they were getting really racy at that part of the pack. And it was eventually going to happen, I think, with that grouping. It's just the way Parrish took that entry. About half a lane higher than he should have, and I think Kamer wasn't expecting it. And that just led to that chain reaction with the other 3 drivers involved to bring up the caution flag once again.
That onboard shot looking off of the back of Kamer's Aegis entry really showed you the bobble that happened on the inside of corners 3 and 4, and based on where the rut is on the racetrack as well, you can visibly see that car kind of bounce over some of the bumps, step up a lane, and maybe if you're too wide, Justin, we often see when people drive it into the corner a little bit deeper than maybe they should have. The car on the outside either if they've got triple monitors or if they're using the mirror, if they got the spotter in the sim, whatever it may be, know that guy's coming up the hill. They'll step up and give him some room. But there was just no way when you're 3 wide like that you can get away with that size of a mistake. And unfortunately, it leads to a yellow, and it'll send a couple more cars to the garage, including Caldwell.
Yeah, just unfortunate for Caldwell. Says he again done for the day, but and just again, this is kind of what can happen if you get over aggressive. Yes, this package requires aggression to get for the field, but if you don't time it up to right down to the perfect millimeter in some cases, that's what can happen. You can end up having contact and end up destroying your day or someone else's day. And now we've already had our second caution of the race so far today, and already a couple more destroyed cars are in the garage area.
And headed back down to pit road, some of those cars will try to tough this one out. You know, a race that still has about 100 laps to go. Some of them are going to continue to come in and try to get things fixed up. Shane Parrish claims responsibility for that incident. So he will receive the end of the longest line penalty. That does mean that he receives 1 caution point. Just to reference the earlier incident that we did not see a driver claim, if that is determined to be any driver's fault in a post-race review, they would receive 2 penalty points. So of course that is the incentive to claim them if you do make a mistake, and the limit is 7. If you exceed 7 caution points at any point in the season, then you will be suspended for 1 race. Those do fall away at 1 per race. So if you get 2 points tonight, you don't cause an incident next race, you drop down to 1. You get through another clean race, you're completely clean. So in an effort to have some accountability, and I think, Justin, that just kind of shows you that Shane Parrish felt bad there. Obviously, it wasn't a case like you're 30 laps into a run and he just threw it in there when it obviously wouldn't stick. Fresh tires, digging hard, you step up 2-3 feet, and it's just close quarters racing.
Yeah, just close quarters racing, where again you can't afford to make any sort of mistake, especially with how the racing can go with this package. It can end up getting very dicey, and in that case, it indeed got too dicey and ended up crossing the caution flag with how they were racing and how high he took the corner into turn 3 and started sliding up a slight touch. Now the question is, how is things going to go for this? Because based on how the racing is with this package, again, if you can get past 15-20 laps in a green flag run, that's where things usually settle on down. You have drivers start to spread out, and the tire wear from the first 15-20 laps comes into play, and the fastest cars end up rising to the top of the leaderboard. So we'll have to see if drivers are going to be able to settle on down and see where they go, especially since we're going to see a couple of the front runners take tires and are already going to be about half a track behind the leaders potentially on this restart.
This restart will see 25 cars scored on the lead lap. That of the 29 who started this race, a total number of 3 have had to go behind the wall into the garage for the opening 2 yellow flags this evening. The pace car going to head down it in, 29 down, long way to go. And it'll be Jason Jacoby's turn to take a crack at controlling the field in the number 3 Ford Mustang as the pace car gets off and away. A much earlier start this time for the 3 car, and he'll have a great advantage. A couple of car lengths down to turn 1. Shackelford on the inside of Crowder, the fight for second.
Yes, you get up ahead with those type of restarts. The problem is, take a look at how much the drivers behind are able to suck on in the draft. A difference up to a couple miles an hour. It becomes impossible to block with some of the differences. Jacoby taking a chance with a 3-car bump draft on the high side.
The 27 and the 51 came in hot, gave him a shove. That is, it looked like Shackelford was in the best position to go to the race lead. He's without help because how about the 80 of Tommy Gossett? He'll look to the middle, trying to make it 3 wide. Can he get to the inside of Jacoby? No. So he'll end up on the bumper of the 3. Here's an onboard shot with Scott McClendon's 51, and you're looking up in front with the battle for the race lead as the 80 pushes the 3 down the backstretch, and Shackelford falls away. No help on the inside. The 3 cars got him.
And now the question is, how long can he hold on? Is trouble!
The 51 is sideways, spinning is Jeremy Miller, and there's the wreck at a turn 4. He's off and into the grass. No caution at the moment because he has ended up off of the racing surface, and I don't think anybody else went all the way around. We'll see if it stays green, but Miller got low, tagged McClendon on the quarter panel, and then got spun off and into the grass. They scattered 5-6 wide, but we are still green, and the battle for the race lead rages on. Jacoby trying to block 3 lanes of cars behind him.
Unfortunate for those drivers, but you see how much that spread them out now. 2 seconds gained on the rest of the pack. And this is going to make it very dicey now with some of that aggression, knowing that the caution may come out if they do an error situation like that. It's going to get fun to see who can try and take advantage of these runs. I think right now Crowder might not be in the best spot. Gossett, if he can connect maybe with Shackelford, might be able to do something if they can hook up on the high side here.
All 3 cars here in this exchange, even Skylar Shackelford, who just falls to 4th there, but is still very much in touch of it. All these cars look really sporty. I think it's way too early on to tell who's got the advantage out of all of them, but if 34 laps are any indication, we're going to have a great night of action tonight as the sun continues to set. The last few moments of daylight shot on these drivers as they drive it at turn number 3. Jacoby on the inside line. Crowder follows in his footsteps as Gossett tries to side draft up on the outside. He'll look high as Jacoby shuts the door on the 27.
I think Jacoby's actually getting a bit tight. He might be overdriving his car to make sure he stays in front of these cars. Take a look at this on the corner exit this time. Has to let off a gas, a slight touch, try to block. And Gossett nearly became the victim right there as they've been able to gain a little bit more time as he tried to let off the gas to block.
Single file for a moment, catch your breath, buckle up, because they're going to do it again as that draft keeps these cars in these packs. Look at 8th or 7th position, Justin, real quick. There's 2, 3 wide action all the way back here. The cars just can't get away from each other. That's why you're seeing this group of 4 cars up front have such a great fight. Make it 5 cars, because Eric Stanford's in the mix as well. Your top 5 race down into 3, with Jacoby on the inside again playing defense. If he is indeed starting to lose the tires and getting tight in that car, the bottom's not going to be a good place for him to run. We'll see how he sticks it through, though, as he again dives to the apron.
Yeah, I'm curious how Jacoby can try and defend. We've seen him a little bit before, a couple laps ago, get tight. This time, looks like he nearly had the same thing. We had to burp the throttle off the corner exit. That's where a lot of the drivers are starting to gain up on him in terms of time. But they just haven't been able to get the run, so to speak, with their dirty air compared to the clean air Jacoby to make the pass work yet. It's going to take a couple more laps, I think, of being more patient and trying to force Jacoby to be overdriving the car to be able to make this pass if you want this to take the lead and get yourself some point.
And we'll see now if these drivers can stay connected. It took about 15 or so laps on that first run of the race to see the top 3 pull away a little bit. I think at one point, in fact, it was the top 2 who had got about a half a second advantage over everybody else. Are we seeing that now? Can Shackelford, can Stanford stay here? The fight for second is going to certainly help them as Crowder goes to the outside, uses the draft of the 3 at Jacoby to get up alongside the 80 of Gossett, and he'll pass him with a nice move on the exit at turn 2 topside.
And I'm not surprised with Crowder. He's been, I think, being patient here. He's got the mega run. And of course, he's shown some strong experience with this car, and I think he's got the run.
Here comes the speed on the outside, right up against the wall. He'll certainly have the advantage at the start-finish line, but is the 3 at Jacoby going to let him get all the way away? He'll go to the quarter panel, drive back down in, and the car just doesn't have it now like it did 5 laps ago. He'll have to give up the spot, tuck in line P2, and Ashton Crowder has completed the journey from a 23rd of the race lead at lap 40. How long does he get to enjoy that clean air, though, with those 4 cars behind him still within just half a second?
Well, he was about 2/10 quicker when he got the run last time. Was in a 33 this time by about a 10th quicker than everyone else. But if he can take advantage of first lap traffic, he might be able to pull away. But second, if he was able to save the tires a bit more so he can allow more on throttle time in the mid part of the run, he might be able to actually break the draft a little bit. It's going to be tough, yes. But I think he can potentially do it because you can see how much more confident he is right now on the apex, especially with 3 and 4 to gain time away.
And that's the key, is you have to learn how your car is going to change and how you're going to make the most of it while these guys continue to hawk on you behind you. Single filed, it's Crowder, Jacoby, Gossett, Stanford, Shackelford, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. In fact, Shackelford just now completing a pass in the battle for 4th and 5th. The 8 machine is also in this, but keep in mind, Kyle Kamer is a lapped car. Has been in a few incidents tonight, so you do see that blue and orange number 8 of Kamer. Looks like the 6th car in line. Not really the case. He's 3 laps down, P26.
Yeah, at least it's good for him to at least keep on going, but that car is looking worse for where to say the very least. But this might actually help a little bit with Connor Horn to draft off of him to keep up, because take a look at 6th position. Horn right now has broken away from that second group just now. Has closed the gap by half a second in what was nearly more than 3 seconds. So Horn's got himself his pace back, going after having to go to the back end of the first pit stop cycle under the caution flag, and he's one of the fastest cars on the racetrack.
And those are all good points. As we look 44 laps into this race, what are these first handful of runs indicative of how the rest of your night is going to go? The racetrack is still going to change, more so than it has to this point. We continue to put rubber down on the inside line, but I think these drivers are finding a rhythm. Jacoby, Gossett, Stanford, Shackelford still nice and close, but Ashton Crowder is loving that clean air, and I think this has a lot to do with Tommy Justin. If he got to the race lead 2-3 laps off for the restart, I bet you Jacoby's back to the inside, and this is not over with yet. But he got them just at the point where the cars and the tires started to fall away a little bit on this run, so a veteran like Crowder knows how to make those moves while not throwing away and tearing up the equipment, and that combination of being able to save your race car and making the move that it did is why I think he's working that half a second advantage. Jacoby closed a little bit, but it's still a healthy cushion.
You hit it right on the nose, because this was discussed a little bit actually last night in an official race by guys like Jacoby. Some drivers have to take like a few days to try and learn how do you manage the tires, minimize tire wear, and be able to capitalize, especially in a key thing, in a fixed setup like we do with this series, because in a lot of cases, some drivers that might race in open ones might feel these cars are tighter. If you take lots of practice time, if you depend upon yourself a lot of the time needed to be able to learn the track and learn the conditions, like a driver like Crowder can do with the organization he is a part of, it can help in the long run to be able to continue sustained success in any type of race car. And we're seeing that from him tonight, to be able to be much more confident and much more quicker, especially through 3 and 4, where everyone else is having to let off the gas, have less on throttle time, which in turn means they're tight and losing more and more time because of how much they might have burned their tires compared to a guy like Crowder.
And the clean air does help. He doesn't have that dirty air, so he is able to have a much more consistent idea of how well that car is going to stick every time he gets down and into the corner. And you talk about him saving equipment and knowing how to stretch a car out over the long run. He is not a pro licensed driver just by coincidence. He is very good at what he does. And just to show you as well how good the rest of the field is, you've got the guys that have been here all season, the Jacobys and the Shackelfords and the Stanford, in relatively close striking distance, as the 27 now really wants to open this thing up front now, closed it in on lap number 50.
Yeah, and we're slowly approaching the halfway point of the fuel run on top of that as well, so the more he can try and break away from the driver stuck in his dirty air, the better it's going to be, and the more likely he's going to be in a great situation to try and take the checkered. He's the fastest car on the racetrack for a reason, with the help of that clean air at this moment. But as we've been cycling along with some of the battles, keep an eye on guys like Andrew Freenosh. He's been off in the back most of the race so far, and he's finally starting to get into a similar rhythm right now in these past couple of laps, moving up to 11th just this time by. While he's not in the same ballpark in terms of pace right now, say we get a caution, he might be somebody to watch for in the late goings of this event to try and gain some more points.
And strategy as well, when you talk about the fuel window coming up, could be a very big factor in this race, as Ashton Crowder the last lap was nearly 4/10 better than Jacoby. The 3 machine made a mistake there, and it has allowed Gossett and Stanford to close in. Crowder's not somebody that you could make mistakes when you race it against them and get away with it. But in a race like this now where, we went from having 4 or 5 cars that all looked very even to now on the longest run we've seen of the night having one driver, the 27 Crowder, looking like he is now the cream of the crop and is starting to pull away a little bit. How does that influence the strategy of the other cars? Do you short pit a little bit? Do you run a little bit longer? Do you change your pit strategy entirely knowing that you're going to have to make up for something? Because if it comes down to a 20, 30, 40 lap run to the end, maybe you can't top that 27 head-to-head. So how will this affect the drivers? This rules package has made decisions like short pitting a lot more difficult than they used to be. The best lap of the night for Jason Jacoby in second, a 29.7. His last lap was a 30.9. That's not a ton of fall off. We're used to seeing Justin sometimes 2, 3, even 4 seconds at some of these racetracks with an older surface. That's no longer the case. So you have to work a lot harder. You have to be a lot more precise in those strategy moves to find extra time because there's not as much of it available. And contact with Gossett. Third placed car is sideways at a turn 4. He got into the lapped car on the outside. The 45 machine of Brian Chambliss was holding his line, but the 80 machine didn't want to give up time, got into him, and nearly wrecks out of the race.
And I was noticing Gossett was getting a bit tight in his past few laps or so, and that time he just pushed straight up. He was trying to get out of the gas for a little while, and I think on top of that was maybe thinking Chambliss was going to give him a little touch more room, especially being in 23rd, pardon me. Gossett's not going to be happy, I don't think, though, because how much time did he lose? He lost 7th, dropped to 7th, but he also lost 5 seconds to the lead pack that he was just a part of.
He's now no longer a part of that group. He's going to be racing with Fredericks and McClendon and company, and I wonder how bad those tires got burnt up as he slid sideways. It basically took a trip all the way through from 4 to 1 through the front straightaway grass. I think position-wise could have been a lot worse. I mean, he could have wrecked out of the race entirely. So he did a very good job of controlling that car, but I agree with you. The time is really what hurts him the most here. 5.1 seconds off of a battle that he was just closing in on Jacoby and probably would have made a move. Maybe that's a reason why he drove it a little bit harder and was maybe a little bit more aggressive around that lapped car as he saw the 3 machine have that mistake a few laps ago and wanted to make him pay for it.
And on top of that, he has been feeling pressure for the past couple laps when you think about it from Eric Stanford with the RealSimRacing machine. Stanford tried to pass him. He tried to defend. The 80 machine did. So it was getting aggressive even to just try and hold on to 3rd spot. So it's kind of to that point where you can't give some space. But the caution is out. It's a big one. Whitson Jr. involved.
The caution flag is out, will slow him down, and as you mentioned, Bryce Whitson is one of the drivers involved in this one. The 00 heavily torn up. We'll use the LSR TV replay to get another look. And it started in turn number 4. The 00 machine just lost it. You can see the car start to lose the back end, Justin, but he turned that wheel just the slightest bit to the right to correct it. Snapped it back up the hill. Very fortunate for the 90 of Eberhardt that Whitson cut back down, or he would have body slammed him into the fence. But then the 00 spun sideways, came back up, and it was a huge hit on Jeremy Bazemore.
Yeah, I think Whitson Jr. wasn't expecting to roll back up on the racetrack, and unfortunate for Bazemore, nowhere to go, no expectation he was about to come up to the track until he was right into his door. Just absolutely unfortunate. Whitson Jr. as well as Bazemore destroyed. This is also going to make things interesting strategy-wise because Scott McClendon pit the exact second the caution flag came out.
And that is not a good break for him unless, of course, he is able to come down to the pit lane, get service, and not lose his lead lap status. That car is exiting the pit lane now. I do not know if he was able to take tires. It looks like he did get his 4. So we'll see if he stays on the lead lap and if he can get all the way back around before the leaders leave pit road. But it is definitely going to be all the top cars down for 4 tires and fuel. Ashley Crowder's the first one in. Let's see if pit stall number 23 hurts him.
And that's going to mix up some strategy as that's interesting for Horn. Horn barely getting into his pit box here. He's going to lose some time over because it took a couple seconds for his crew to realize, oh, I'm inside the box. This is going to be an interesting race.
And Crowder still in his pit box. Some sort of a problem for the driver of the number 27 machine. He is still in the box after getting his 4 tires, and he is down there for a long time as the race off of the pit lane is long gone. It'll see, I believe, looks like Eric Stanford be the first car now cycling through. The number 19 machine winning that race off of pit road just ahead of Skylar Shackelford. But what a turn of events for the driver who just was looking like he was running away with it. Ashton Crowder now finally leaving pit road.
And I think Crowder had taken the time to fix some damage. He did have some right front fender damage despite being the fastest car on the track at the moment. But, it's going to be curious if he can cut through the field again. We've seen this before from some drivers, have to say, in a couple different series where they elect to sacrifice track position and see if they can do it all over again indoor field if it's getting too racy to try and stay out of trouble. But I don't know if I agree with this call this time from Crowder.
We'll see if it does pay off for him, but he is basically going to have to recreate that run for the back to the front in the second half of the race, because this race start's going to come up basically right at the midway point. We're about 2-3 laps shy of it, but that is when we will go back green, and it is going to be chaotic. So for sake of being able to watch those fights, let's use this opportunity to take a look at our Ford Entertainment Group midway race break at lap number 60. Eric Stanford in the SK Sim Racing Ford, now your race leader, atop of Skylar Shackelford in second, and then the big movers, Jason Jacoby in third, Todd Novosad in fourth, and Anthony Fredericks in the number 4 spot. Looks like the number 34 machine is going to lose that spot, so he'll get kicked back. So Fredericks will go to 4th, and it'll be Connor Horn in the number 5 spot. Tommy Gossett, therefore, is going to be 6th. Shane Parrish will go to 7th. Dylan Jones will be in the number 8 spot. Andrew Freenage will become 9th, and Sean Kalist should be P10 when the scoring updates.
Yes, right behind him is scoring. Tommy Gossett should be 12th for Daniel Eberhardt. Tom Moreno, along with Rhett McBride, following behind that. Quiet race today so far for Jonathan Goodell. He'll be scored around 14th-15th. Jeremy Renenberg sits behind him. Scott Brotherton, Blake O'Connell, Ashton Crowder round out the top 20. The rest of the drivers also towards the back. Tom Novosad amongst the last drivers. Everyone else is coming out of the pit lane.
It'll be a little bit shuffled up, but it looks like the likes of Bazemore and Miller are both a lap down, so they'll be 22nd and 23rd together. L. Bryce Whitson Jr., his night is done. He'll trickle to the back, allowing Kyle Kamer to pass him from 25th. Matt Miller's behind the wall, so is Nicholas Caldwell, Brock Drury, and Thomas George, 26th, 27th, 28th, and 29th. That is a look top to bottom at your Ford Entertainment Group midway race break. FEGPC has been serving the iRacing community with custom-built affordable computers specifically built and tuned for iRacing. Your PC will come with everything you need preloaded so you can get racing as soon as it hits your doorstep. Get yours today and join the 600-plus iRacers already enjoying a Ford Entertainment Group computer. PCs to fit every budget from $540 and up. You can go online to fegpc.net and enter code LSRTV10 to get your build quoted today. Pace car back down to pit road. Let's see if Eric Stanford can make this opportunity count. Green flag back in the air, but it is a very slow start for him. Shackelford had the lift as to not beat him to the line, and here comes Jacoby to the inside in turn 1.
And I think Stanford just said, you know what, if you want it, take it. Especially with how he took the restart. And Jacoby's going to get some help from Horn as some good battling already up towards the front. Everybody wants to get to the point.
They're 3 wide, but nobody's in line behind Connor Horn. He's all on his middle and the inside. Now the 4 of Anthony Fredericks will jump down, abandoning Stanford to go to the middle as the 24 loses out to all the momentum on the inside line. Jacoby to the race lead. Dylan Jones on the bumper scored second, and there is Andrew Freenage for the first time tonight after starting 13th but missing the grid, falling a lap down and getting a lucky dog. He's cracked the top 5.
I think he's going to try and help his teammate Dylan C. Jones try and get a run here, especially with how racy they are on the high line. See if he can get his teammates moving. He also has Kalist right behind him, so this is going to get some aggressive moves once again to decide who's going to lead this draft once the clean air comes into play.
Still 2x2 throughout the entirety of the top 10, the top 15. Now the momentum has swung back to the outside line as here's the charge for the 24. A horn. Look at Jacoby way down to the apron. There's a car off and into the grass. It is not going to be a yellow flag, though, so we'll stay green as everybody sneaks on through.
I think he tried to use Basemore's draft to try and get a run there. I don't think that was a smart idea for Jacoby. But I think he tried to take advantage of the lap car, saying, you know what? I'm going to use you to try and keep in front of these cars. Use your draft. And I think it just scared Basemore, thinking he was going to run him over.
Yeah, Bazemore got scared, jumped down and into the grass. He was on the apron at the time. Jason Jacoby desperate for any little thing that he could get. Of course, when you're up front, you got no drafting help, so it's everybody rolling like punches, one after another, coming up from behind you and giving you a run for your money for the race lead. It's Horn again to the outside in the 24. They're all going to close in now in turns 1 on 2 on a slow Brian Chambliss, who nearly caused an incident earlier. He'll get down to the apron, let the cars go, and there's Jacoby again to the apron for the draft.
And this is getting very aggressive for there, but take a look at the aggressive moves on the high side now. Eberhardt's trying to make it 3 wide to battle inside the top 5 now.
4 wide even, maybe, as Shackelford thought about going to the inside of Fredericks, doesn't do so. Eberhardt's the only one on that 3rd lane. Now Tommy Gossett thinks about joining him, but more or less stays on the inside, and it looks like Eberhardt might just make this stick. The 88 car comes up in front of him, and a crash behind.
Yeah, Redenberg involved. I think McClendon also involved. Hard crash.
No caution, though. We're still green. They both ended up down and into the grass. It was Jeremy Rittenberg and Scott McClendon. McClendon pushed up, tagged the 26. Both cars into the inside wall, but we stay green.
And I think that just collected O'Connell, too. Just it looked like Rittenberg didn't leave as much space as McClendon was hoping. Ended up hitting, McClendon hit him in the left rear. That sent them both in the grass and just barely hooked O'Connell to hook him towards the right side. A heck of a save for the 67, but huge damage for McClendon. Along with the others, the battle for the lead is on, though, still between 2 Camaros.
And Connor Horn has had a couple of looks where I think he wanted to go to the inside line, but Jason Jacoby just will not let him, I think sensing that the 24 is going to have a challenge with the way that race car is now completed to move up top. Look at the block again to the inside, all the way to the apron as Jacoby protects the inside at all costs. Horn with a shove into turn 3, and I don't think he was happy with the block, but he only cost himself some time. Opens up the door for Dylan Jones to get underneath him.
Well, I checked myself. 1 Camaro, 3 Mustangs. The Mustangs right now have the advantage, as Eberhardt had to check up big time because Horn let off the gas. I think he damaged a slight jump into the front bumper, trying to avoid the back end of the 24. This is getting aggressive. But again, Jacoby has the clean air. He might be able to try and take advantage. But on top of that, you got a guy that's been probably saving this entire run. Crowder into 9th position in his Camry.
The Crowder marches back through the field into number 27, his 9th place run. Right now is a 9/10 of a second deficit as your race leader sliced down to the inside of the now slow and damaged Jeremy Rittenberg entry. Couple of rough goes at it for Jeremy, who came into tonight on the cusp of one of the final playoff qualifying positions. Your top 5, though, they need to get going. Ashton Crowder is still connected to them by a series of cars, Justin, that are only 2 to 3 car lengths apart from one another. The top 5, really, if they're going to get away like they have every long run tonight, I would suggest you do it sooner rather than later, because if you put a second or at least half a second in between you and Crowder, it'll make it a lot more difficult for him to catch you. If that 27 can keep drafting off a car, passing them, draft off a car and pass them, he'll be there in no time, now up to 8th.
You're right on that. He just needs to continue to cut his way, be patient, work with the draft, try and get towards the quarter panels and make the passes, especially when the outside is preference line, and keep on going. Force the drivers to put in the work for you. Don't let yourself burn up your tires, or else you're going to be the one dropping back at about 5-10 laps instead of them. And I think that's what Crowder's doing, but it's getting aggressive now for second on back. New second place, Curran Jones.
And look at the 90 of Daniel Eberhardt. He'll slice between the 24 and the 88, trying to get up on the inside of the 24 of Horn, and he's going to get it at the start-finish line. So Connor Horn drops 2 spots that lap alone. Jones jumping to second, Eberhardt to third. Oh, it might have been short-lived. What a dive as Ferdinand's looked low and the 90 came across his nose.
And for teammates, you'd think you'd be a little more slack, but nope, trying to race aggressive for points there, Eberhardt. But should note with the 24 of Horn, the reason he's dropping back, his tank slapped the wall a lap and a half ago in the backstretch. He's now got aero damage. He is falling back like a rock all of a sudden because of how hard he hit that right front that right front fender, already crumpled up above the tire.
And how will this damage continue to affect these guys? The cars aren't going to get any better. It's only downhill from here. And I think with any times down to the pit lane now inside of the second half of the race as we begin to count down. In fact, this time by, it'll be 50 laps to go. I don't think you could really afford to sit in the box and get cars fixed. Connor Horn really tight at a 4. What a move by the 80th Tommy Gossett, who got absolutely pinched up against the wall and still made the move.
He actually touched Gossett's left rear quarter panel. That could have been disastrous. But Gossett able to just thread the needle, avoid the wall, just barely touch Horn. Heck of a pass to move himself up. But Horn, he's now definitely struggling with that aero damage.
He loses 2 more spots. Ashton Crowder passing the number 5. How about Rhett McBride from 24th on the grid? First time we're talking about that. Number 5 Chevrolet. He's into the picture. Shackleford to the inside of Connor Horn. They're all teaming up on him, and maybe he'll fare better now that he's on the outside, but he is really struggling with those tires. The 12 gets it on the inside.
Yeah, that's going to be an error. Teammate passing him on by, but that, again, I think shows how much damage was hit. If it was just maybe that fender, it'd be okay, but it also pushed up some of the hood pins on that right side of the car. Until he can get a caution flag, he's going to keep on dropping more and more and more back because if anything is above 10 seconds aero damage, especially with a fixed setup in this package, you are a sitting duck. Horn is officially a sitting duck.
And we'll see how far he'll trail. He's down into number 9, which is, I think, one of the worst positions he's been in, if not the worst, under green flag conditions this evening. Back to the separation, though. I mentioned that would be a key for drivers to defend against Ashton Crowder. He's still on a couple of cars. Tommy Gossett next up as the 27 looks to regain the top 5. However, Jacoby out in the very front. He's got a 1.2 second advantage over Dylan Jones and Daniel Eberhardt, who sit second and third. That is great news for the 3. I bet he's hoping this serves up for a green flag run to the end.
Yeah, that clean air, he's taken advantage of it by far, especially with drivers that are between him and the next driver comparable in Freenage being held up or losing time because of how they're feeling with the race cars. So Jacoby at this point may as well keep on going, chugging along. You're inside the window to make it on fuel from here on out. But pit stops are still a ways away, depending on how this race goes. You've only been having these drivers in this run for 20 laps. Wouldn't be surprised to see everyone go all the way into the end because there could be a caution any time with this package, the way this race has gone tonight.
We were almost going to have an opportunity to talk about the green flag pit strategy to the end of this race as we were closing in on halfway. Then the yellow came out, Justin, but I do think that it almost simplified the strategy a little bit because the last time we were on pit road was at that yellow. We restarted at lap number 62. So that made it fairly easy that this race was just inside of about 60 lap run to the end, and you're looking at about 30, which is a totally doable number for pit stops to be able to go. So lap number 95-ish may be when drivers pull the trigger and head down to pit road. It's only 10 laps plus away from here, so when you talk about that range, if 95 is the middle, some might pit 5 earlier, some might pit 5 later. We're not that far away from pit stops. I know it feels like a very short run, but I think it's just easier for these guys to go for one stop, split the difference, assuming we stay green. And as you mentioned, with this package, nothing's a guarantee with battles all throughout the top 15.
And on top of that, when thinking about those numbers, say if you go at, say, lap 86, if you have drivers pit beyond the first 5 laps of you on fresh tires, you're going to fall behind like a rock until they equalize past lap 10 of a green flag run, because regardless of the age of the tires, it seems, they even out to about 30.1s to 32s right now with this race tempo the way it's going. If you pit before then, you'll lose all the time you gain on the racetrack with fresh tires, because the difference is only about 1 second a lap at this point in terms of the fall off we've seen tonight. So if you go for the undercut, you have to hope you do it at the right time so you don't lose too much time and not be able to defend. If you do the overcut, however, it might not be beneficial if you do your pit stop too late because of how little fall off there is in that equalization that comes in with the packet.
Gap up front continues to stretch itself out. 1.397 last lap, a 1.485 advantage this time. So Jacoby doing what he needs to do. Crowder has completed that pass on Gossett, as we saw, and is up into the number 5 position. He's got a little bit of a pocket of clean air in front. 7/10 is the difference between he and Andrew Friedage in front of him. Friedage has been a good car, don't get me wrong, Justin, and I think that maybe if he does miss the grid, he gets to the top 5 earlier, he figures some things out. Maybe he's a top 3 car at the moment, but he hasn't been that dominant self that we expect from him, and he also seems to be one that on the long runs just doesn't have it this evening. He's trying to catch up to Eberhardt. Eberhardt trying to catch up to Jones. It's a handful of cars in this circle here who are still pushing really hard.
Now, right now, in terms of the pace comparison-wise, they're essentially on the mark just about of the leader, just about 10th off. Crowder, though, is quicker. I think for Friedage, though, it's kind of that race, this point of the run where it's like, it's not going to play too much into his hand, I think, if he tries to push. He's kind of that driver that likes to just keep things calm, force the drivers in front to overburn their tires, take advantage, and then push away. Tonight, he's not been able to have that opportunity, and he's got teammates in front, so at this point, I think he's just going to stay patient. Then once he goes for his pit stop, that's where we see him try and do what we expect him to see usually and what we've seen with the series, to try and take advantage, to see what he decides to do, as it looks like Horn has opened up the pit window with Shackelford.
Well, that's very early, but he is down pit road at lap number 87. There is no doubt that this will be 4 tires and fuel as he looks to make a 37-lap run to the end. It would be pretty long considering this run was in the ballpark of, I think, 26. So certainly going for the short pit here. Shackelford, as you said, is down with him also. So they are in. Nobody else from the top 3, though, biting that time. Top 5 stay intact, in fact.
And Fredericks nearly missed the pit entry, in fact, trying to follow everyone else on the undercut. He absolutely locked it up and nearly missed the commitment cone, but is able to keep it on off the racing surface and get into the pit lane. That could have been disastrous. This is a very tough pit entry, mind you, to get into because of how tight it is to get off the banking and make that left-hand turn to be able to get inside the yellow line and inside the commitment cones at the end of the pit entry.
Will this affect some of the battles? Is the driver who maybe feels like they've only got a handful of laps to be able to hang on to whatever position they're fighting for, is that going to influence their decision to come down to the pit lane a little bit sooner than maybe a schedule? That pit window is absolutely open. Come in when you want. How much time are you going to quote-unquote give up while you stay out on track? I don't think we're at that big influx yet, so just those handful of outliers who came in a tad bit early. Most of your leaders still fighting with each other, including Tommy Gossett trying to get the spot back from Crowder. The battle for P5 is back on, with the 80 car hounding Crowder in 1 and 2.
And he's got the draft this time, Gossett, but he's going to try and take advantage of this. Crowder all of a sudden is falling a little bit off, but I think Crowder again has him where he wants him on that preferred line. Crowder is on the outside for him and trying to force Gossett on the bottom side. It's going to be tough to try and pass with these worn tires on that lane from here on out before the pit stop. So I think Crowder's just going to try and make him overdrive the car and then try and take advantage before he pushes into the pit.
80 car again, back to the inside. Crowder mirror drives, blocks once, goes back high. Gossett's going to be able to try the bottom, but I mean, look at that vet move by Crowder there, just pinching him off, Justin, daring him to drive that car into the quarter on the bottom and wreck them both. And kind of cut him off, got the spot back, and playing a game of chicken with him.
Yeah, and I think it's going to keep on going the way this is going to be. Force him to outdrive himself. I think that's what he's thinking, Crowder is. Make him do the work. That's what Crowder's doing, but the pit stops have gone on for some of the Aegis cars. So I'll be curious to see if guys like Jones, Eberhardt, Freenosh follow them in the next few laps or so. The drivers who came in, Kalis and Stanford, who are the back part of their team contingency, still in the lead lap.
That's 13 total cars at the moment. Connor Horn leads the group of cars that had already pitted, and that now changes. Rhett McBride just now passing the 24. McBride had just come down to the pit lane at lap number 88. Passed him for what is 14th at the time. That could very well cycle through to being the race lead. In fact, I would suspect it would, even with that only 1 second margin, with the 90 of Eberhardt now coming down to the pit lane from the number 3 spot. I think with the amount of difference we're seeing this pit stop discrepancy have, those cars will go to the race lead. I don't think they're going to be able to hang on to it. You get a lucky yellow, you never know. But those cars, 14th on the back, now 12th on the back with more cars pitting. McBride should become your race leader at some point here.
And that might be interesting that he was a part of the drivers that followed a lap after guys like Horn who opened up the window. Curious if he's going to be able to have enough, though. But Crowder's just came into the lane. He's following the race leader, Jason Jacoby. Everyone else is going to extend at least one more lap, it looks like. Tommy Gossett up towards 3rd spot for the time being. Jones the leader for now.
And I think the only reason, is the 27. Crowder overshoots his pit box. I like the call to come in, but too deep in the box for Ashton Crowder. It's going to cost him some time. They came in right at 95. That's about what I was expecting, but a lot of time just thrown away.
Yeah, that's going to be, yes, it's only about a second in the pit box on that overrun, but that could be up to 3 seconds on the racetrack depending on how it cycles through. Plus, he is still sitting inside that pit box. This is going
I don't think it's letting him take tires. The right side hasn't gone up. I don't think it's recognizing him as being in the correct spot. He can't get service. And at this point now, 15, 20 seconds later, he's done.
I can't believe this. I can't believe this. This is going to take him out of contention. I don't know what to really say with that. We've seen this before for drivers where they say they might have that issue with the tires, but this is an absolute race killer for someone that was one of the fastest, if not the fastest car tonight.
It's not who you expect that would make a mistake, and I don't know if the car's too far left. Typically, you just back it up behind the line. You should be good. Even if he's frustrated, the tires are still going to go on it, but, I mean, the tires have not gone on. The jack never went under the car. Ashton Crowder night is done in the blink of an eye, so that'll change the complexion of the race from 4th on back, which is where he was running when all of this happened. Of course, Gossett still out on track in the number 80 machine. I'm sure his team has relayed that information to him, and Gossett now, I think, a lot more comfortable with trying to lock up the number 4 spot, but still waiting on Jones, still waiting on Freenosh to pit. They run first, second.
Yeah, this is, now I think they're on the strategy of hoping this race goes to a yellow flag and then goes from there. Because I think they're going to go as long as their fuel tanks go at this point. Try and pray for the caution. Because the way it's set up, only about 8 or 9 cars will be on the lead lap, and most of them would be in a situation where if they had to take a wave around, they'd be at a massive disadvantage. So I don't blame them. Try and do something different. Yes, it's a major risk with the overcut, but it wasn't going to work if you followed the status quo to try and beat guys like Jacoby to get the checkered.
So how committed do they remain? Are they going to continue to try to stretch this out all the way to the end? Or at some point do you kind of cut your losses and hop back on with everybody else? Again, McBride, I think, is still in a great position because he pitted so early. He's ahead of a lot of these cars still. Ahead of Connor Horn, ahead of Jacoby, Eberhardt, Stanford, Fredericks, you name it now. He's running slower lap times than all of them. And in fact, Horn's on him. So Jones is in from the race. Jones is still out on track. It's Freenosh who's in, and Gossett from 3rd.
Pardon me there, I just noticed them come in. It looks like Gossett trying to match up with Freenosh, knowing the pace he's been in this series. So this is, I think, again, it's going to lose them a lot of time, up to 5-10 seconds, but I think they're hoping that they'll be able to gain it back up with that more than 5 lap advantage on fresh tires once they get out of the pit lane and see where they cycle.
The 4-tire service comes nice and quickly. Does Jones respond? No, the 03 is just locked in and doing his own thing up at the front of the field as everybody else has come to the decision that it's time to pit. Jones has ran again in second position before the pit stops. Jason Jacoby had led atop of him. They then shuffled things up. So we'll see what happens now, but we're at the point in the run now, Justin, where it's Cadell and Shane Parrish, Todd Novosad, Blake O'Connell. They're the top 5 now because they're the ones hoping for a yellow, having run in the teens and 20s all night.
Yeah, and there's only 5 cars technically on the lead lap for the time being, although it's going to start growing in a little bit here. So they're hoping they get this yellow flag, pin everyone else underneath the behind them a lap at least, force them to take the wave, because in that case, they be in line to gain some very valuable points. And this is not out of the realm for guys like Novosad. Novosad, mind you, at Talladega ran at the back most of the day. Stay conservative, pit actually every single time, and on everyone to go signal, came up with the race victory with the help of Jonathan Cadell. So he's following right up at a strategy guide, but Jones has just came into the pit lane, and the caution is out.
There it is. Caution at lap 104.
90.
It's the 90 of Daniel Eberhardt, who had already come down, gotten service, was trying to make a run to the end, and it was contact between he and the 5 of Rhett McBride. The replay will show. I don't see any driver, Justin, really move up or move down. They just grazed each other in the corner. Eberhardt got loose, could not hang on at a 2, locked it up. In fact, did a great job of saving it, but it still triggered the caution flag.
Yeah, mind you, they were on the same lap now at least, but the way it's looking like with McBride, he just held on to his line. Eberhardt tried to diamond down a little bit and just bumped the right front quarter on McBride, sent him loose, and Eberhardt tried to do everything he could to lock it down and save the car, but it was enough to trigger the caution flag because of the angle of how he slid down to the bottom of the racetrack. This is going to scramble everything up because just 7, make it 11 cars on the lead lap of the time of the yellow.
And it's good news for the bottom half of them. McBride, Jacoby, Horn, they at least just cycled back to the lead lap. But if I'm reading these numbers correctly, it does look like that Andrew Freenage a lap down. He gets trapped. Tommy Gossett a lap down in the 80. So is Shackelford. So big names from the top 10 tonight get caught off in this caution flag, and it may pay off huge for those that stayed out. Jonathan Cadell is going to come down pit road as your race leader. He started 25th position earlier this evening, and before the pit stop cycle began, he was running back in 13th. Now he's in P1.
Yeah, the Steel Horse Racing machine has been struggling at times tonight, but he overran his box on top of that. On the same lap cycle now, you got Parrish, Novosad, O'Connell. But drivers that to watch, though, Jacoby, Horn, Stanford, Fredericks, they've all been helped with this. By the way, Freenage the lucky dog, the drivers this is not going to help. Guys that were up in the front like Gossett, Shackelford who led some early laps, K-List. This is going to hurt the guys that are 12 on back now because of the timing of this yellow flag, and potentially be huge for guys like Jacoby and Horn to battle it out.
And it looks like that by deciding not to pit, Gossett, K-List, Shackelford, Brotherton, and Morano are going to get back to the lead lap. We'll see if they do continue to stay out, wait for the lights to go on the pace car, and then actually get waved around. I would think that's the logical idea. It's going to hurt you on tires. You're going to be at the back of the lead lap. You're going to be the only cars not on tires. It's going to suck. But you get a yellow, you come down pit road, you get back into this. I think the odds, Justin, of these final 20 laps going yellow-free are very slim based on just how great the racing's been off of the race starts tonight. So I like that call. Stay out, get your lead lap back. I think they'll have a number, of 17 on the lead lap by the time we get back to a restart.
Yeah, all it takes is a quick yellow to get yourself back on strategy. If you don't have that, though, it's going to sting. It's going to be the word I'm trying to say. It's going to be something that can absolutely be an absolute killer if they don't get that caution flag. Otherwise, it's just the survival of the point. But But it's going to be interesting how this race is going to play out for a lot of these drivers now, because they're going to have 12 drivers on fresh tires, everyone else on either old tires or multiple laps down, with a couple new players up at the front.
And we'll see the exact running order once all of this updates through. However, it looks like that the 03 of Jones is currently being scored as your race leader because he decided not to come down to the pit lane. He had actually, I'm just taking back a look through, his pit stop came at lap 105 just before the yellow came out. So he does not pit under the yellow, and he'll actually end up in front of Cadell for the top spot right now.
I don't think it's going to make too much of a difference, honestly, with the one lap. It may be a slight difference, but once we get past lap 10 and all the tires equalize, I think this might actually again help Jones. So it came at the right time, yes, for Jones, with the way he was trying to stretch it to go there. If he stayed on the racetrack one extra lap, it'd be even more crazy, I think, this race, though, because we might have been only down to 5 on the lead lap with a ton of wave rounds as they're going around the pace car with 1 to go.
And you can see now everybody will group back up. Gossett, Kayla, Shackelford, brother, to get the wave by. The magic number is going to be 16 cars on the lead lap. Tom Morano in the 42 decided to pit under the yellow, so therefore he ended up back behind those actual lead lap cars in the running order, and therefore does not get the wave by. So 16 cars going to race this one out. We will see if this race has a chance to get the better end of the 16 or so laps that'll be left to go under green flag conditions, or how this will play out. But we should mention, new rule recently to the iRacing service, green-white checkers are in effect tonight. We've never seen one in a full throttle RealSimRacing Cup Series race. Tonight could be the first ever, as this one sets up for an exciting finish. The pace car is going to go down and in. It is Dylan Jones's field to control. There's a bunch of misfits behind him that includes Cadell, Novosad, and Blake O'Connell in the top 4. Green flag now back in the air.
Very clean start once again for at least the top 2, but third on back could get dicey. McBride tried to force the issue, but that's going to open up the door for Jacoby and Stanford on the bottom side.
Here's where the fast cars are. Look at Fredericks to the outside. The 5 car, let's go 4 wide at Chicago with the 19 of Stanford on the very inside. In front of them, it's Jacoby to the bottom. He'll try to work the field. Stanford's loose in turn 4, and everybody trying to find a way through as they go 4 wide again.
And this is getting very dangerous here. That actually squeezed Stanford and forced him to check up. It's getting very aggressive, way too aggressive.
The 5 car. McBride gets tagged by the 24. Does he save it? No. He'll take the 4 of Fredericks. Caution flag as they wreck out of turn 2.
As I said, getting way too aggressive there, it looked like. Horn tried to ride the bottom side, pushed up, trying to keep the throttle and got tight. Hit McBride, hooked him alongside. McBride nearly saved it, but then he got through off because Fredericks hit the wall trying to get around McBride. That caused the big one for those 2 drivers. Both of them smacking their front clips hard into the fence. Brings out the caution flag once more and helps all the wave around cars in the process.
I think the incredible thing here is I don't think the 5 or the 4 touched each other at all. As that 5 got loose, you mentioned, and the second look showed, the 5 didn't go up and hit the 4. I think the 4 saw the 5 sideways, tried to get around him, drove himself into the wall. He hits the wall and spins out, while at the exact same time, McBride spins out on his own underneath him, and they are connected to one another, but I don't think those cars ever touched. And it's a lot of damage for McBride and Fredericks.
They never touched, absolutely they never touched. The reason I think McBride at least went around was because he knew Fredericks was up there. If he kept it the way he was on the throttle, he would have smacked into Fredericks' left rear, and that would have been even more a big one. Instead, he had to overcorrect to try and avoid that situation. For Fredericks, it's just a matter of couldn't get enough space to avoid everything, and he also overcorrected trying to avoid snapping left into traffic. And everything is all scrambled up now, but that also helps every single wave around car get some fresh tires with a 3-lap advantage on green flag pace.
So they'll come in, get service. The question remains, if you're a top 5 car, do you pit? It has not been uncommon to see drivers want tires on just short change runs all year long. You got to figure what's more important, tires with a chance of running as many as 10 laps to the end, or the track position. We'll find out to see if any of them split away the second time through, as the likely suspects were down to the pit lane that time.
Yeah, everyone about 8th on back came in the pit. The reason I think the leaders came in is there's 12 laps to go this time by. You don't want to end up going to the pits and risking having to cut your way through the lap traffic. Not lap traffic, the drivers on older tires, I should rather say, and try and regain those positions, because there's not a lot of laps to gain them back at this point. So I don't blame them for staying out in this situation, the leaders, to try and hold on, because I think at least if you're able to get a decent run, they'd be able to block more efficiently than having to pass everyone back.
Let's stay on top of the pace car, so it'll be a restart with no less than about 10 laps to go or so, assuming the lights come off the next time through, and gives us a good chance to kind of hit the hard reset button, because I gave a call to, I called them the misfits, that kind of middle group there, Justin, that really reaped the benefits of when that yellow flag came out. And that was, of course, Jonathan Cadell, who ended up in the number 2 spot, but then Blake O'Connell, Todd Novosad, and that group. They kind of got eaten up by that group of fast cars that had just gotten back to the lead lap when we restarted, and I think that that's realistically what we were going to see. So now it's Jacoby 3rd, Eberhardt 4th. Those guys have been in this all night. A little bit of work to do for the likes of Andrew Freenage in 8th, and Tommy Gossett in the number 9 spot, but still with some hope. And 10 laps, if we get all of it, is enough time to make some noise. I wonder if that natural light Toyota of Cadell can hang on in the number 2 position, or if it's just a matter of time before his fate is the same as those others that stayed out and caught the yellow. But at least amongst the cars that we know can run up front and have proven themselves in this race, a great battle to come with Jones, Jacoby, and Eberhardt.
I think so, absolutely. We're going to have an aggressive battle here. Cadell, though, has been just going off to the top side and letting everyone by for the majority of these times. This time, however, might be different. With it being 10 to go, you're not going to get the breaks you got with 100 laps to go. You're going to have drivers fighting for every point and potentially the victory as hard as they can if they feel they have a realistic shot. And for Cadell, he might have a realistic shot even with the damage on his race car, that slight right front damage, to try and make some noise and make it back to victory lane once more.
They are doubled up for what could be the final race start tonight. It does come right on the button with 10 laps to go in this, the Windy City 125. After this evening, still a handful of races to go until we get set to go playoff racing. 8 more left after tonight in the regular season, including to next week when we return to the Daytona International Speedway on Monday, July the 8th. It's a 9 Eastern start. You can watch that coverage right here on LSR TV and the iRacing Esports Network as always. But right now, the battle at hand is for the 15th checkered flag of 2019, and Dylan Jones, who gridded 30th position 115 laps ago, will take the green flag. 10 laps left to go from Chicago. It's a good jump on the outside, though. Here comes Cadell. The 3 car wants to find the middle. Can he do it? Jacoby trying to get there. He can't. Oh, and he'll turn the 69 sideways. He'll hang on to it. They all save it in turn 2.
Not the smartest move for Jacoby to try and force it that close right on the bumper for Cadell, but a heck of a save for everybody to keep it green. The worst it got, though, was Jones, who I think he might not even got the clean start because he went all the way to the apron. I'm not sure if you're supposed to do that for this type of race tonight.
Look at Tommy Gossett and Andrew Freenage on the fresh tires. They started at the back end of the top 10. They're now in 2nd and 3rd. It's a block on the inside by Eberhardt. He knows those cars are better. The 88 now will sweep to the inside, and the 90 is going to have to make that Ford awfully wide if he wants to survive the next 8 laps.
And this is going to get very aggressive here. You got Gossett that's looked great on the short run so far. You got Freenage that's been waiting for this moment and being patient. Can see him potentially helping Freenage for now, but eventually Freenage should say 5 laps to go is going to say. Time to stop helping my team. I gotta go for this victory. They're really pushing for 4.
Oh, Cadell got tied out of the corner, and he got up and into the 3 of Jason Jacoby. They'll hang on, and I wonder if he wasn't. Oh, that shine the 90 car! Daniel Everhart for the race lead. He's into the inside wall after he tried to block Gossett, turned into the inside, and a yellow flag is out. What a run from Chicago. The caution comes out with about 7 laps to go, and it was all with Daniel Everhart. The replay will give you a better look as we were watching some of the cars that were wrecking at it too. It was a great dive to the inside for the 80 of Tommy Gossett. Justin, no surprise that the 90 went to block and it just didn't work. He was there.
Yeah, that's basically what he did there. I think Gossett made some first-time contact there in the left rear. Everhart then came down to block and just, I think Gossett didn't know that he was underneath the quarter panel there. Hooked the little on his lip of the Chevrolet Camaro nose and just turned Everhart. Just, again, unfortunate timing there that triggered all of that. I don't think that, of course, that was intentional there. It was just hard racing to battle for this race victory, but that completely has killed Gossett's nose and potentially his chances here, because he is going to have a lot of straight line speed killed in that machine. And of course, Everhart, who is now off the racetrack with a potential DNF.
So Everhart's night is done, and of course, let's not forget, back when the restart itself happened, we had a lot go down when the 3 machine was making the moves and Jason Jacoby tried to make a 3rd lane. Cadell left room simply because he was trying to arc the corner a little bit better, and then he came down back across the nose of the 3, who was really trying to put that car in a place that I don't think it fit. A big loser in all of that was the 0-3 machine, who gets door slammed. That was Dylan Jones. Dylan Jones dropping to 13th position with the damage that he accrued.
Yeah, but you have to remember, too, he went all the way down to the apron, which at some tracks has triggered, depending on the situation, in a situation where you have to go to the back. So I think at that point had the contact and said, you know what, may as well give right the sacrifice the track position and make sure make sure I'm okay with the racing stored up in the booth. Make sure you're okay with that kind of a rule. Go from there, because I don't know how Jones would have fared the rest of the way or how it would have been decided upon this late.
Now he'll look to salvage what should have been a great night for him. Now in 13th position of the 17 that were on the lead lap, and this caution flag period will take us past what was, or what used to be, that point of no return. So for the nearly decade-long history of RealSimRacing and of this Full Throttle Cup Series, being under the caution flag at this point in the race has always meant that this will be the final restart, but of course not the case. If a yellow were to come out before we take the white, we will have tonight 1 attempt at a green-white-checkered finish, should it so come to that. And with all the chaos we saw in that 3-lap run, with the window now cracked a little bit more wide open, with Gossett and Frinas somehow going from 8th and 9th to 1st and 2nd, it'll be an incredible duel between those 2 drivers.
Yeah, I think so. I think Gossett, though, is going to be the sitting duck out of all of this, and that's going to open up the door for Frenosh. It's going to go either way, I think, at this point. Depending on if we have a short run, I think Gossett might be able to try and block if we get a quick yellow and go and get that triggered attempt. If we don't, I think Frenosh might be able to pass him quickly on the outside, and the battle for second onward could be a coin toss, essentially, since guys like Jacoby and others are all the way in the back and having to deal with traffic and potentially might be down to straight line speed with their respective damage. It's going to be it's going to be absolutely wild when we get back to the green here.
You're just tuning in with us. You missed a good race. Green flag pit stops, some incredible restarts, numerous occasions of 4-wide racing, and it will all accumulate now with a race start that will leave us with 3 laps to go from the virtual Chicagoland Speedway. The full running order at the top of your screen, but here's how the first 5 rows look. It's Tommy Gossett and Andrew Frinas on row 1, they're 1st and 2nd. Eric Stanford, Jonathan Cadell on row 2 in 3rd and 4th. Todd Novosad and Sean Kalis in P5-6. Shane Parrish and Rhett McBride in 7th and 8th. And Skylar Shackelford and Scott Brotherton around through your top 10. back on row number 5. There are 17 cars on the lead lap. Nobody's saying that a car from outside of the top 10 can't win this. There's a couple back there that have been very good cars tonight, including Dylan Jones, including Jason Jacoby, but they're a little bit beat up. And I have a feeling that this may just come down to a battle between those two in the front row, the 80 and the 88. That 19 is Stanford, though. He's my dark horse pick. Inside of row 3, just in a great spot to restart. It all depends on what the 80 machine Gossett's got. This time at a turn 4, a very early jump and a big advantage on the inside.
Don't blame him for trying that with the damage that's on the front nose. Try and take advantage of the clean air and try and block from there. Now it's going to be a matter of can Freenosh and Cadell take advantage because Stanford didn't have the best of jump.
Here's the run for Freenosh. He'll look to the outside. Oh, Gossett comes up and door slams and tries to block. Nose to nose in turn 3. Cadell's there in third as well. He wants to find the way into the mix. Nose to nose for the race lead. 2 laps to go this time by. Stanford recovers. He's there in fourth as well. It's a drag race to turn 1.
And I don't know what Tommy can try and do here. With that damage, he's going to need a hope for some luck here. Because he's going to get side drafted to heck. He's going to need some potential help even from Cadell to be able to try and hold on to this. Because Freenosh has the cleaner air and might be able to try and pinch him to get the run off the exit.
To be curious to see if either of these drivers get some help. Cadell and Stanford third, fourth. They're not pushing anybody. Here comes into the picture in the number 5 spot, Sean Kalist in the 43. White flag in the air. Last time around from Chicago, it's still the 80. Gossett on the inside. Freenosh on the outside. Door to door as they have been for the last 3.5 miles. It's going to come down to turns 3 and 4. Is it going to be between these two? Stanford can't get there. They're going to beat and bang at a turn 4. Wrecking behind them. Outside line. Freenosh hangs on. And the 88 car steals the win. His 7th of the season tonight from Chicagoland.
And that's going to be a historic one for Freenosh. An absolute blistering close finish. 0.0077 one-thousandths of a second to get Freenosh to the top of the all-time wins category list.
You saw the 80 machine, saw that the 88 machine had the run. He moved up, he doored him a little bit. He tried the dive to the apron, and as you said, 7 one-thousandths of a second for Andrew Freenosh. And the last time he was at Victory Lane from Pocono Raceway, I think I teased with him that with one more win holding him away from becoming the all-time winningest driver in this Full Throttle RealSimRacing Cup Series, that he should make it exciting, and he delivered on that tonight.
Yes, that will put him above the mark, believe, in front of Dwayne Vincent, who had 18 career victories, a win percent of 9%. Now Freenosh able to pass above him. Before tonight's race, by the way, for Freenosh, had a winning percentage of 22% of his entries in this series. Absolute blistering pace we've seen from the 88 in his career in the Full Throttle RealSimRacing Cup Series.
And it is a celebration for the 88 machine. A little bit of a different look to that Ford the last few weeks, but it has paid off. 7th of the year, continues to stretch what is a championship points lead that is more than 100 points to the next closest driver, continuing to show that, well, even with some of the new blood in the race tonight that gave it their all, that he is still the man to beat, leading 1 lap, and it was by those 7 one-thousandths of a second at the very end. What we'll do is take this opportunity to step aside for a moment, and when we come back, we'll catch up with your race winner in Victory Lane and talk with the other cars inside of the top 3 tonight. You're watching LSR TV's coverage of the 2019 Full Throttle RealSimRacing Cup Series, powered by Sim Racers for Mental Health. Post-race and more when we come back to Chicagoland, where Andrew Freenosh is your race winner.
The most realistic online racing sim ever made. This is iRacing. Detailed laser scan tracks, fully dynamic real world cars, and over 50 series to choose from. 6 online world championships offering over $100,000 in annual prizes. This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
This broadcast is the copyrighted work of LSR TV, and it may not be rebroadcast, retranslated, or used in any form without the express written consent of Live Sim Racing LLC and iRacing.com Motorsport Simulations. LSR TV would like to And back live from the virtual Chicagoland Speedway following a thrilling finish to tonight's Windy City 125. We welcome you back into the LSR TV booth for post-race coverage of the Full Throttle RealSimRacing Cup Series powered by SimRacers for Mental Health on your home for sim racing at the iRacing Sports Network. Evan Pasoko, Justin Prince, Brett Wheeler with you. We'll go trackside, talk with the top three in just a moment, but first let's look top to bottom at tonight's LSR TV full race results. Andrew Ferdinand 0.007 seconds ahead of Tommy Gossett, who comes home second tonight. Eric Stanford to round out your top three. They will be the ones who will be standing by to chat with us in just a moment. But continuing through to Shane Parrish and Jonathan Cadell. How about the 69 car coming away with the top five tonight? Todd Novosad ends up at a P6. He had his own photo finish, barely edging out Rhett McBride by only 6 one-thousandths of a second for that spot. McBride ends up in 7th. Connor Horn is able to rebound for a P8. Dylan Jones is 9th, and Skylar Shackelford rounds out your top 10.
11, Sean Kalis, followed by Scott Brotherton, while Jason Jacoby, after the contact was seen with Cadell, in a couple different situations, dropped all the way to 13th at the checker flag. Blake O'Connell's 67 machine came away 14th, with Jeremy E. Miller having a rough day in 15th spot tonight. Tom Moreno and Anthony Fredericks in 16th, 17th, while Kyle Kamer finished the first car laps down, 3 laps down to be precise, in 18th spot. Scott McClendon also finished the race 6 laps down, while Brian Chambliss and Danny Everhart finished 7 laps down a P7.
And continuing on through these cars, also Everhart, you mentioned 7 laps down in 21st. 10 laps down, Jeremy Rittenberg still toughed this one out. He really needed all those points to get on the playoff cutoff, so he gets a few by toughing this one out. Everybody else behind the wall. Ashton Crowder, 23rd tonight. Jeremy Bazemore, 24th, with Bryce Whitson Jr. in 25th. Earlier issues for Matt Miller in 26th position. Nicholas Caldwell, 27th, with Brock Drury and Thomas George rounding it out in 28th and 29th spot. That is a look top to bottom at your LSR TV full race results. Let's head down to Real Sim Racing Cup Series Victory Lane, where we are stood by with now the greatest who's ever done it at this Cup Series level. Andrew Freitas gets win number 7 on 2019. And Andrew, first off, congratulations. But I know I joked when you got the last win to make this record-breaking one excited, and we're very appreciative that you did just that. 7 one-thousandths, the margin of victory over you and Tommy Gossett. Just tell us about it.
I can't believe it. My God, I don't get very excited for these races anymore, but wow. I thought we were going to Daytona next week, but those last few laps was flirt and pray, and I got to the outside, and I didn't even know how I got up there. They all wrecked fighting for the lead. Next thing I know, I'm in 3rd, and then I'm sitting 2nd, coming to the way. I don't know, Evan. We just ended up with the lead, but man, that must have been fun to watch.
Certainly a thrilling finish, and I know that you've been working a long time to get to this point, to be able to get this win in particular. Not number 7 on the year, not just a win at Chicagoland, but of course to top Dwayne Vincent, one of the Real Sim Racing greats, to be number 1 now on that step. Oh, well, of course, trying to win races, trying to learn stuff, trying to position yourself to fight for another championship this year, and you're in a great place to do so. But the bigger picture, what does that mean tonight?
It means the world. Like I said, I didn't think we'd get here this year. I thought maybe next year. And last week I felt like was pretty much my last good chance to get it. I felt confident that road course, and a mistake took me out of it. So I was looking forward to Watkins Glen. I had no idea about tonight. I truthfully didn't do much practice at all. Started from pit road. I mean, I can't believe it. But to have the most wins, it's unbelievable. I started my journey here. Dave Washington brought me on the team, and I remember my first win at Talladega. I couldn't believe I did that, and just to win with guys that have run in here, Dylan Jones and Dave Washington, Daniel Everhart, and Dwayne Vincent, all those guys. I still can't believe. I think that's what 18 career, 19 career. That's just crazy.
And you mentioned, obviously, starting for the pit lane and had to get a lucky dog to get back to the lead lap and fight through the field. You weren't the only car to do that. So it seemed like this race lended itself to passing. If you were aggressive enough, if you knew what you were doing, you had the car underneath it, you could make those moves. What was it like moving through the field, positioning yourself to have a chance when we got that late race restart?
Yeah, again, I didn't do much practice, so I didn't know what to expect, and we got the caution to catch it to the field, and then me and Dylan just kind of started drafting together and making our way through the field, and I really don't know how we were doing it. We were kind of just pushing each other. Once he pushed me by, I'd stay down, let him draft back up to me, and we just keep passing cars, till we got realistically up to 6th there, and then hands off to Jacoby. He was flying again. I don't think we had flat-out speed to beat him, but that's really how we got it, was just drafting with teammates.
So it is still, in the context of this season, a 7th win for you in 14 starts, being able to get the wins at the fun tracks, to pull one out in Phoenix, to pull one out in Bristol, but you seem very comfortable on these intermediate tracks where we expect there to be a core group of cars that are in the conversation every night. And tonight, that group of cars grew with some new faces, but you're able to continue to stay on top of it now with 8 races left in the regular season. Andrew, we want to, again, congratulate you on the victory. We will let you get to celebrate this special occasion. Before we do so, as always, the sponsors, the shout-outs, all those folks who has made this journey possible.
Yeah, I just want to say a big shout-out to LSR TV. I started here 3 years ago, and I was lucky enough to scrape into the playoffs with the win at Talladega, and you guys do so much for this league. I love running it every Monday night. I look forward to it every single week. And without you guys, it doesn't happen. All the drivers, again, Tommy Gossip, that was the first race I've done with him in this league, and it was a good race. And, you race all my teammates, Eric, and big thanks to him for the paint scheme as well. You race Dylan, Daniel, Dave. I hope everything's all right. I know his daughter was in the hospital today. Looking for an update, make sure everything's okay with him. But, just racing all these guys, I look forward to it all the time. All the fans who watch, I really, really hope you enjoyed that. That was a fun race behind the wheel. Just all my sponsors, my family, especially my dad. We delayed our vacation one day so I could run it, and it really paid off. I know I'm forgetting a ton of other people, but everybody who's helped me along this journey, it's cool to have the most wins all time.
I know that we'll extend our best wishes as well to Dave and his family, and also I'll repeat the same thing to you, Andrew, every time you give a shout-out to us, is that we send that right back at the drivers. This series isn't here on a Monday night without you guys who are here on a week-in, week-out basis. To the 50-plus drivers who have competed this season, thank all of you for being a part of it, but thank you for being a part of the history of RealSimRacing. Thanks for your time tonight, and again, congratulations on the win.
Thanks so much. Happy 4th of July to everybody as well.
The race winner tonight for the Chicagoland Speedway, and he did it in remarkable fashion. Ferdinand comes out on top by 7 1/1000ths of a second to the driver who finishes on the second step of the podium in his debut. Justin Prince is trackside with the driver of the number 80.
Yes, indeed. Tommy Gossett joining us now in second spot, coming away behind by just 7 1/1000ths of a second. Tommy, one of the craziest finishers this season we have seen in the RealSimRacing's event schedule. Talk us through what you've seen from your side of things and your perspective.
I I'm just shocked I was able to hold on to second. I didn't think I had a prayer whatsoever after the nose damage and the contact with the 90 prior to that last caution. I'm just so shocked I was able to hold on to second. I figured Andrew would just come up on the outside and blow right by me. So it's just shocking, to be quite frank.
Sounds like you're in Opera Hall, but either way, 23 laps is what you led tonight in your debut event. Talk us through what drew you to join the Full Throttle Real Sim Racing Cup Series, as well as how you felt you did all night long because you were a front runner up in the top 10 from the drop of the green flag tonight.
What led me to join RSR is I wanted a challenge. I make no bones about it. My end goal on iRacing is to get to peak, and I'm willing to do whatever I have to do and take whatever time I have to do and put in to iRacing to make it to peak. And with guys like Jacoby and Crowder and Ferry Naz and really fast guys, I wanted to be a part of a really fast league to see where I stack up, see where I need to improve, and see where I need to make changes. And again, I'm just shocked that I was able to run top 10. I honestly came in expecting to run 10th to 15th and maybe squeak away with a top 10. I didn't expect to qualify in the top 6 and walk out with a leading 20 laps and second place barely. So
yeah, absolutely was an impressive run for sure tonight, but next race is one of those great equalizer kind of tracks. It's the Fireworks 80 laps, 200 miles at Daytona International Speedway. First time for the package at Daytona specifically for RSR. Your thoughts as we head to our second Super Speedway event, second with this package of 2019.
It's going to be crazy. There's no doubt about it. I'm hoping that it being 80 laps brings me some good luck since I'm in the number 80. Hopefully I'll be the one on the front end of that 7 1000s next week.
Is there anyone you want to thank before we let you go here tonight?
Yes, sir. Obviously, first off, I got to thank God for being able to put me back in this position to be able to do what I love. I got to thank my team, One Sim Motorsports, and I got to thank my sponsor of Dr. Squatch and NASCAR Banner.
Thank you very much for the time, Tommy. Congratulations on the second place finish in your first career start.
Thank you, sir. Thank you all for the broadcast.
That was Tommy Gossett, who came away second tonight. The man they finished in front of was the teammate for Andrew Freenosh. I'm standing by with him as well, Eric Stanford for Aegis. Eric, you finished 1/10 back of the race lead. Tell us through your perspective what you're thinking as the laps ticked down after the final restart of the night.
Well, I knew I wasn't going to get around on the 80, got a good jump on the restart, so I was pretty much just trying to push Andrew as hard as I could to get him up to the lead, and it worked.
Yeah, I was going to say, I noticed you give him a bit of drafting help on the outside and it turned into an advantage of 2 miles per hour at the stripe. Talk us through your opinion on how this package drove, in your opinion, to try and make moves, to try and pass, especially once the long run came into effect.
It's tough. I mean, the tire fall off really isn't all that much. So, I mean, early on in the race, when the track wasn't so wore out, you could save tires a little bit, and a little later on in the run, you could come back up. But, I mean, it's through this package, the racing's just so close and tight, it's just hard to pass anywhere, and just got to get what you can get.
On top of that, you're one of the few drivers really that were able to stay up in the lead group essentially from the drop of the green flag. How difficult is it, in your opinion, to be able to keep up with those kind of packs to make sure you stayed in contention, and especially since you never knew, say, if a caution flag flew like they did early in the race and late in the race?
It's tough. You got to be defensive, because I know when I was in the lead there, about halfway through the race. Oh, what was it? Yeah, well, halfway through the race there, I was in the lead, and on that restart, everybody just blew right by me on the outside, and I think I fell back to like 12th or 13th place. I mean, you got to be defensive when you're racing with this package.
Honestly, I agree with you based on what I've been seeing personally as well as from the broadcast booth, but we're going to have a crazy one, I think, next week, even more so. Daytona, first time we go with this super speedway version of the package, pardon me, to Daytona. What are your thoughts in the preparation to get ready for a crazy restrictor plate race? Let's just say that.
Yeah, it'll be crazy, all right. I don't know. It's pretty much just going to be, I think, just going to be riding around the back for the first half of the race. Just trying to keep the car clean. It's about really all you can do. I mean, this package just sucks up so much better than the last one. So Makes the racing a lot tighter. It's easier to suck up. So, I mean, riding around in the back, you can catch back up to the packs pretty quick.
Yeah, that was something we've seen both in real life as well as virtually when we went to Talladega, whether it was officially and with RSR. It's going to be absolutely entertaining for sure. But anyone you want to thank before you let you go here tonight as part of your top 3 finish?
Everybody over at Aegis, Kyle, Andrew, Daniel, Dylan, Sean for sponsoring the car this year, SKSimRacing.com. Give a shout out to Dave. His daughter's in the hospital, so hopefully she's doing well. And my wife let me do this every Monday night.
Thank you very much for the time. Again, we hope that Dave ends up being better, as you mentioned there. Thank you very much for the time, though.
Thank you.
Eric Stanford coming away third tonight. A 1-3 for Aegis, really technically a 1-3-4, I think, if you think about it. But heck of a night tonight, Evan. Heck of a show.
A historic night tonight from Chicagoland Speedway with Freitas getting to that mark that was set by Dwayne Vincent, somebody who, much like Freitas has the last few years, used to dominate on a week-by-week basis. Again, this RealSimRacing Cup Series it goes back years and years to the early days before LSR TV was the thing. And, to have a new driver on top of the mountain is fantastic to see. And hopefully, some of the drivers who have become up-and-coming drivers this year, and maybe some of the new names who started with us tonight, that race with us for a while, and we continue to see how this series evolves. But big thanks, Andrew Freitas, Tommy Gossett, Eric Stanford, for giving us their time post-race here tonight. What a race. I know I said it at the beginning. I love Chicagoland, and maybe this is one of the few tracks, Justin, where the package has not changed my opinion. I still love it. You had big wrecks. You had a lot of cars getting into each other, people getting turned. There is a handful of post-race reviews that have to go down for some unclaimed incidents over the course of the night. That's just a product of racing this close. I thoroughly enjoyed this race, and hope everybody at home did as well.
Yes, indeed. And I think part of the reason it was so good is it's similar. Of course, it's nearly the exact same shape, better than the arch backstretch to a track like Kansas, which, mind you, put on what is relatively the best race in real life this season so far for the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series. This is just a bumpier version with the original surface from 2001. So it's fairly understandable to see that kind of racing that we've seen on a lot of the mile and a halves, especially Kansas, translate to a great race tonight at Chicagoland. Now the thing is, how will the drivers react to the Super Speedway package with a lot of aggression expected there at Daytona, which could absolutely be crazy from the get-go from what has already been seen in the past couple of hours or so with the official races going to the circuit.
Jonathan Cadell won that race at Daytona earlier this year in February. He was in the grass at the end of this one after a bold strategy play put him in a position to fight for it. We will see who takes it as we head to our third plate track of the season. With only after that race, Talladega still to come. That one falls later this year in the round of 12. But with all of that being said, round number 15 tonight falls into our rear view mirror. And that's it tonight from Joliet, Illinois. As always, want to thank our entire team at LSR TV, the people who make these broadcasts possible on a week-by-week basis. Of course, for your broadcast team tonight, for myself, Evan Pasoko, for Justin Prince, and for Brett Wheeler, we want to thank you for tuning in and congratulate your race winner, Andrew Freitas, number 7 on the year, and a historic one tonight from the Chicagoland Speedway. This series will continue next Monday night. That's July the 8th. It's a 9 Eastern start from Daytona International Speedway. That race and every race of the Full Throttle RealSimRacing Cup Series, powered by SimRacers for Mental Health, can be found right here on LSR TV and the iRacing Esports Network. Until next time, good night from Chicago.